The first thing the man did after being reborn was call the authorities, and personally send his adopted son to a correctional facility, because he clearly remembered. In his previous life he handed his company over to his adopted son, but his adopted son locked him inside a slaughterhouse with handcuffs and shackles. Only then did he realize, his adopted son had been plotting to take everything from him all along. The next moment the man was reborn 3 years earlier, on the day he chose his adopted son as his heir. Back then his adopted son had secretly stolen his $1 million watch, then framed his biological son for the theft, causing the man to throw his own son out of the house. At that moment the man discovered his biological son was living a miserable life. After school he not only had to cook and do housework, but he only had a few old and worn out clothes to wear. The man felt deeply guilty. He handed a bank card to the maid, and asked her to clean up his son's room. If his son needed anything, she should go to the mall and buy the most expensive and best items. The maid was extremely happy after hearing this, because in his previous life she was the first person to discover the adopted son's scheme, but the man refused to believe her back then. Instead he fired the maid. After that the man went to the mall and bought many luxury items. He wanted to give his son a surprise. At that moment the man returned to the company to deal with some matters. Unexpectedly the adopted son came home from school and immediately ordered his biological son around. When he turned around and saw all the luxury items, the adopted son thought his father bought them to celebrate him becoming the heir the next day. The maid told him those gifts were not for him. They were bought by the man for his biological son. The furious adopted son slapped the maid across the face. The man was already used to his adopted son's arrogant behavior. He quickly begged the adopted son to let her go, but the adopted son mocked him and said he was not worthy of owning those luxury items. The maid was afraid the adopted son would hurt the man again, so she deliberately changed her words and said all those things were for him. Only then did the adopted son calm down. That night when the father returned home, he saw the maid's swollen red face and asked what happened. The maid told him everything that had just occurred. The father angrily walked into the adopted son's room and saw him playing games with the phone he bought for his biological son. He ordered the adopted son to return all the gifts to his son. At that moment his wife and mother-in-law heard the noise and came over. After learning that the gifts were bought for the man's biological son, they were both extremely shocked, because the father had always valued the adopted son the most, but this time he was protecting his biological son. The adopted son refused to return the gifts. The father took out his phone and called the authorities. His wife and